This is Rob Kilmer. We are ready now to move forward with the You Defend It debate series. We're going to talk all about it this week on You Defend It. Welcome to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. The phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. As always, callers to the show will need to take a position, be able to defend it with an argument that is factual, not emotional. And if you can't make your point without insulting someone, you can't make your point on this show. Callers and guests will be treated with complete respect. For my part, I will ask questions that matter and give people the opportunity to answer. My website is www.youdefendit.com. That's youdefendit.com. You can give me your comments on the show anytime. By Friday of each week, I will have the topic up for the coming show. You can also visit my blog through the site, read my posts, and leave your own. The lineup for the Sunday talk shows will also be posted there on Saturdays. You can also listen to my show live on streaming audio on www.wnbf.com. And my show is uploaded after my show to youdefendit.com. Later on Saturdays, you can listen to it from there if you missed it live. The website is going to become prominent in today's show for other reasons. We'll get back to it. However, today we're going to talk about the debates. And we're moving forward with them. In fact, we're filming one. And that is going to be the topic for the entire day today, because you are going to be part of it. In my humble opinion, you have been part of it from day one. You're part of it now. But from now on, I want the people who listen to the show and who are interested in the debates to know that they can participate more. I want people to get in on the ground floor of something that I think this country needs. It's taken a lot of work to get it to the point that it's at right now, but now is when the fun part starts. Now is when it is actually going to be put together and shown to prospective purchasers of the show, people who will air it. And it's coming right now because we're bringing it right out of Binghamton, New York, and I hope to have we're going to film it in the next 45 days, and it's going to be a real debate. This will not be a mock debate, although to some extent this is a pilot. It's also the real thing. What is going to be filmed is what the show will look like when it is aired. I want to explain at this point what has happened so far, what I have done. You may recall that after March 4th, when I had my argument with Rush Limbaugh, that I was able to get into contact with David Frum, who was a speechwriter for George Bush. He's also a prominent conservative. He had written a cover story at that time for Newsweek, making the point that Rush Limbaugh could not be the face of the Republican Party if the party was going to climb back into the ring. His point was that there needed to be a more serious conversation coming from the Republican Party. It could not be talk radio. It couldn't be that format. It had to be engagement on real substantive debates, on real substantive issues. It couldn't just be 3 hours of rants every day, being that could not be the voice of the Republican Party if they wanted to get anywhere. And I was able to connect with him, and he and I spoke. And he connected me with a man named Vince Haley. Vince Haley is the man you meet when you want the ear of Newt Gingrich. So 8 days ago, I went to Newt Gingrich's office in Washington and had a nice meeting with Vince Haley, and told him that we will be producing a pilot of the You Defend It debate series, and I will be delivering that to him. Now, that leads us to the next step. As I said, the debates will not be, or the debate that I'm going to be producing, will not be a mock debate. This will be the real thing. And here is an overview of the process. As I've said before, I don't believe in keeping anything really from my audience, from the people who listen to this show. I think that we've been talking about this together since the first time I raised this issue, well over a year ago. And I don't see any good reason to hide the ball now. I'm going to tell you everything I can tell you about it. How it's going to work, where it's going to be, how the questions are going to be determined, how the topics are going to be determined, who's involved. I want you to know everything, because I can't think of a good reason not to tell you. And also because you're part of this show, and I love this show. And I want you in on this from the very beginning. Here's how the process works. The You Defend It debate series is owned by my company, One-on-One Productions. There are 7 people who will be directly working on this. They are 4 lawyers, of which I am one. Those 4 lawyers consist of a very conservative Republican friend of mine from Miami, where I went to law school, a conservative Democrat, a Kennedy Democrat, he would tell you, an independent, and me. Those are the 4 lawyers involved. We will decide on the questions. We will come up with topics and questions ourselves, and we will also take your input. I have gotten more out of this show from you than you have gotten from me. Some of the best questions and observations I have ever heard have come into this studio, not gone out from it. And what I want you to do is go to my website and post your suggestions for everything. For topics, for questions, for venues, for participants, all of it. I can't say that we're going to definitely use any of it, and I can't rule out using all of it, but I want it. I want you to participate in the formulation of this show. From now on, listening to this show, at least as it pertains to the debate series, is not a spectator sport. I believe, maybe naively, but I believe that the people who listen to this show consistently share my view that this country deserves a better debate than what we've gotten. When it comes to the issues of our time, the problems we face, this country deserves better than rants from the right and the left. And I also believe that the You Defend It debate series is a way to do that. So go to my website, www.youdefendit.com. There are places to post your suggestions for topics, questions, venue, participants, anything. Now the debate that we're going to be filming, we're going to build a stage. We're going to build a setting that looks identical to a presidential debate. It's going to have the carpeting and the curtains and the podiums. And it's going to be treated as seriously as it should be treated. My view, and I have expressed it to everybody who I have talked to about the debates, whether that be in Washington or New York or on this show, The debates and the way they are run should be worthy of the issues discussed and the Americans whose lives are affected by them. And that's what you're going to see in my debates. They are not going to be free-for-alls. They're going to be organized. They are going to be, I won't say rigidly controlled, but there's going to be questions and answers. That may sound like a given, but when you think back on the debates you've seen, it is not a given. There are questions. Rarely are there answers. There will be answers in my debates. All right, we're going to come back in a few minutes. You are listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer, right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF, Binghamton. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. Phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. We left off talking about the debates. And I believe I left off saying that there are going to be 7 people involved, including me, actually formally involved, putting together the debates. The 4 lawyers who will be putting together topics and questions, and also choosing participants or people who will be invited to participate. The next person is the judge. A retired Republican judge, Supreme Court judge, will be, I don't use the word moderating the debate because he will not be moderating this thing. He will be presiding over it. This will be formatted like oral argument. He will run it. He won't pose questions and sit back. Oral argument is very different than a traditional debate. Oral argument is where both sides come in. The judge asks questions. And when I say oral argument, I mean in court. That's what I'm used to. And it's a better process than for sifting through issues than a traditional debate is, because not only is there no real room or purpose for making statements or remarks that are not really germane to what the issue is before the court. More importantly, the court doesn't tolerate it. As I've said here before, if the judge asks a question and the first words out of the mouth of the person he asked it to are, well, let me tell you what I don't believe. You know, if the judge says, well, what's your approach to this problem? How should this problem be resolved? And the person says, well, let me tell you what we shouldn't do. The judge is going to say, stop right there. I didn't ask you that. You're going to tell me, you're going to defend your position today. You're going to put up. You're going to tell us why you're right. The theory here is that the people at the debates believe they're right. Show us. You know, judges are in the business of taking in as much information as they can possibly get and making an informed decision. That should also be the business of us as participants in a democracy. When we cast our vote, when we form our opinion, that should be the culmination of gathering as much information as we can get. Good information, real information. Not emotional pitches, not pandering. Facts. And then deciding how we come out on a particular issue. That's the process we're shooting for. That's the process we're going to implement. So the judge, he will not be In most debates, the debaters face not only the camera, but the moderator. The moderator is seated somewhere, usually physically below them, the debaters. That's not going to be the case here. This isn't going to resemble a courtroom, but the podiums will be positioned in such a way that the judge will be looking at the camera as well. He will be behind even the debaters, and he will direct questions to them. And with the angle of the podiums in front of the judge, the debaters will be able to take the question from the judge and look at the audience and give their answer. But the judge will physically be in a position to get their attention and say, "Stop. Go back. We need an answer here." And the judge will also be in a position to develop answers. What do you mean by this then? When you say this, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I mean that in a polite way. This isn't going to be a cross-examination, but it is going to be, the purpose of these debates is to get information out there, real information. And you're going to find, this is my absolute belief, that the people who participate in this, some of them will excel at this. For some of them, this is the chance they've been waiting for. We are not the only ones who are disgusted with the state of debate in this country. We're in the majority. There are going to be people who do very well in this format. People who are more than able to stand there and defend their position, who have been looking forward to an opportunity to do it, who have been looking for a forum to do it. And that's what you're going to get. So there's 5 of the 7. There's the 4 lawyers and the judge. There's also Kim, who works with me and will be handling every last aspect of everything, as she does right now for me. And Annette, who is in charge of the web and the promotion. The webmaster. Those will be the 7 people directly involved in this. The people indirectly involved are you. And the only thing I want from you is your input on everything. Any opinions or positions you have, who should be invited, what the topic should be, what the questions should be, what the questions should not be, let me know. The website is set up for that, and I'll be wanting to hear from you. All right, we're going to go to break in a couple minutes, but because I have Frank on the line from Appalachian. You there, Frank?
Hi, Rob.
How are you?
Good.
I'm going to you first.
I got 2 quick questions. I think you answered the first one when you said that Geraldo Rivera and Lou Dobbs bugged out of the debates when they found out about the courtroom rules of debate, and that's what I wanted to know. Will these be on TV, and will a live audience be allowed? And I have a second quick question. A friend of mine who's a retired judge sends me a lot of emails. During the week I got one, said Heller has been incorporated by the Ninth Circuit Court. I read through the filing, which was long, and I noticed that the chief counsel was Donald E. Kilmer, Jr. of San Jose, and I just wondered if he was a relative.
He is not.
Since this was a landmark case.
He is not.
Okay.
But as to your question regarding live, yes, it'll be live, and there'll be a live audience. I will say this.
Will it be local?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes. It will be local, and there will be a live audience. The audience will not have a role in the debate. There won't be any clapping or anything like that, but...
How about booing? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
Okay.
There will be no throwing of things at the stage either.
No shoes?
No shoes.
Okay.
That gets you 3 years some places.
Boy.
But yeah, there will be the primary focus for me is the stage at this point, as far as filming this is concerned. I don't want to worry about the audience as far as having a 500-seat auditorium and getting 300 people there. I don't want to worry about that. But it is going to be there will be an audience there. You will be invited on this show over the air to attend. You'll know well in advance, and you'll see how this works. But the primary thing for me is to visually depict this as a debate worthy of the issues and the people. And it will look like a presidential debate. I'm going to have these things built, and I'm probably going to keep them.
Well, hey, I want to say congratulations, and it surprises me you got these started this quickly.
Well, thanks. All right, we're going to go to a break here in a minute. For Kathy White will be up for 3-4 minutes, and then I will be back. And you are listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. Phone number to call in to the show is 772-1290. I last spoke with Frank from Appalachian about the debate that I'm going to be filming, a pilot episode, so to speak, of the You Defend It debate series. And let me explain a little bit more about it. Right now and in the next week, I'm going to be looking at venues to host this. I'm also going to be figuring out, or we, the people that are working on this with me, and you, a topic. It's there are certainly lots of good topics to choose from. I have thought about gun control in light of what happened at the Civic Association, but on the other hand, it just happened, and I was pretty upset about the way the media covered it. And on the one hand, that's what inspires me to discuss gun control in the context of what happened there in a way that will rectify what I consider to be the negligence of the media as they did it, or at least of certain networks. But on the other hand, that's a little too close to home. So I don't know about that one. We're thinking about immigration. I don't know if you've been following this. I'm sure this is going to turn into an immigration issue, this Mexican flu. I only heard about it in the last 24 hours, and I only heard about it from one of the people who was going to be working on these debates, who brought it to my attention. There are cases in Mexico, and there are cases in New York and Texas that certainly smacks of immigration. However, I don't want to go jumping into that either until there's no real hint of illegal immigration in it, and I don't want to imply that there is by making that the topic of the first debate. But there's no shortage of issues confronting this country right now, and we're going to pick a good issue. But they're all good issues if they're handled right. I believe that. I think that we can, in this format, particularly with the people who are involved, particularly with the person who's really going to be the face of it, the judge. And the only reason I don't tell you his name is because I haven't told him that I would. I don't have any reason to believe he would care. But I try and be respectful that way. I think that the way he will run this, it will be polite but purposeful. The goal will be clear at all times, and it will be adhered to. We're going to get information out there. It's the same general principles that I say every day when I start this show. You're going to have to be able to take a position, be able to defend it with an argument that is factual, not emotional, and no insults, no pandering. In fact, you won't be allowed to reference the other person's party or philosophy or any of it. It'll be the judge's job to test the other person's argument. When debater 1 starts talking about debater 2, the judge will just step in and say, I'll take care of debater 2. I have questions. Another thing that's different in this format is that the participants won't necessarily be asked the same questions. If the topic were, for instance, gun control, there would be no real value in asking the question, do you believe that the Second Amendment grants people the right to carry handguns? Not only has the Supreme Court weighed in on that recently, but you already know what the answer is from one side. So if you're a gun control advocate, that's a decent question for you. That's the reality of the situation you find yourself in if you're a gun control advocate. You've got to contend with that pesky Second Amendment. It's there. That's got to be part of the discussion. You're going to have to acknowledge that it exists and that it confers rights upon people. And on the flip side of that, you're going to have questions asked to the other side that will be designed to test their argument as it pertains to essentially a freewheeling system of minimal gun regulation. And you'll find out if what I want to do is separate ideology from logic. You know, I've said on this show before that some of the best questions I've heard have been on this show. And I've also heard incredible questions on other radio shows from callers and from other hosts. I remember, and we've talked about this, the person on the issue of drilling who pointed out, I think it was on Sean Hannity's show, well, who owns the oil? And we talk about drilling as if because the oil may or may not be located underground in the continental United States, all we've got to do is drill it here and our energy problems are solved. Like most things, it's really not that simple. We haven't, you know, this isn't this isn't a state where we've nationalized the oil fields. That oil will come up out of the ground and be drawn up out of the ground by people who have purchased the right to do it. And they also have the right to send it where they want. There's no reason to believe that the oil that is pulled out of the ground in America will stay in America. And that's the type of issue we're going to really explore through these debate series. We're going to get through this debate series. We're going to go a little deeper than just the philosophical and the ideological, you know, and the party line stuff. You want to raise taxes? How much? You want to cut taxes? How much? Nobody ever has a concrete plan for paying off a debt, by the way. That is a Democrat and Republican affliction. That's a perfect example of where you hear ideology instead of a plan. Well, when the economy picks up, there will be more than enough tax proceeds to pay. That's a philosophical argument. What is your plan to pay it? The money doesn't automatically get repaid. It has to be directed there. And these are the types of things we're going to talk about. When we talk about deficits, for instance, we're having a debate on the economy, we're going to talk about who we borrow from, on what terms, when's it due, what is the interest payment, what happens if we default, things like that. Those things matter a lot. If we talk about health care, It is not going to be enough to say, I don't want socialized medicine. Because I guarantee you the follow-up question will be, then what do you want? And you better have an answer. Because it's a real problem that affects people's lives. It won't be enough to conduct business as usual when it pertains to these debates. They're going to be different. There's going to be one objective here, and that is to get real information out to the public. To find out what it is people are talking about. I think it's worth doing. It happens in court all the time, successfully. You owe it to your client when you walk into a courtroom for oral argument to know what you're talking about. You also owe it to your client to play by the rules. Because if you don't, you hurt your client's case. Your client is stuck with the results of your performance. That's how it is with our elected representatives. We are stuck with the results of their performance. When issues are decided, when topics discussed, in a manner that is purely political, then the likelihood of a substantive, legitimate, reasoned solution is diminished. We've had enough of that. Doesn't work. Which one of our major problems has gotten better in the last 10, 15 years? Through Clinton, through Bush, through Obama. Which? Our debt has soared. There are countries around the world that are developing nuclear weapons. Countries that are not particularly fond of us. If I wasn't talking about the debates today, by the way, we'd be talking about Pakistan, where, as predicted by many people, the Taliban, after being given that Swat Valley, they moved closer to the capital. They've retreated in the last 48 hours or so, but they're not an idle bunch. They have an agenda. And Pakistan has nuclear weapons, pure and simple. What's the plan? We're going to need one. I hope we have one. We'll be back, the last part of the show. You were listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. Phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. Let me just tell you a little bit more about the people who are involved, the judge and the lawyers, in the formulation of the questions and the formatting of the debate. From the standpoint of views on the issues, we have nothing in common. I shouldn't say that, but very little. We disagree on more than we agree on. But what we agree on is that the need to get a credible discussion of critical issues out there outweighs any of the individual issues. There's no question that whatever views I may have on a particular issue will be represented by one of the debaters. And in the mind of the public, that debater may lose a debate. depending on how she or he performs. Now, in some sense, that would set me back, because my view on a particular issue would take a hit. The public would say, maybe that's not the way to go. But overall, I'm happy. It's less important to me, and all of us involved in this, that any one view prevail than that all views are properly aired for the American public to make a decision. That's what we have in common. We are willing to put that aside, our own preferences on certain issues and our secret hopes that the public agrees with us on the issues more so than the other side. That's all backseat stuff to the primary objective. We are willing to relegate that behind a more responsible, reasonable debate, which is why the people involved have such differing views. And they will be reflected in the questions. I couldn't do this alone and be fair. I don't think. I'd try, but I'd fail over time. You got to be willing, if you're going to engage in this unique type of project, you have to be willing to prioritize a thorough debate over winning on some narrow point. This judge, it was an enormous call for me to call him. I waited. As you know, I have had this idea for the debates for a long time now, but I wouldn't call him, and I wouldn't ask him to participate in it till it was time, and now it's time. But I admire him. Having practiced in front of him, having been on the receiving end of some of his more directly worded decisions, he cares about nothing more than the process itself. Nobody had an edge in his courtroom from the get-go on the basis of party or firm or viewpoint. It was a new race. Everybody came from started at the same starting line every time. He was exacting in his requirements. Show up, be able to defend your position. And the winner won. That sounds like a redundant statement, but it is not. The person who came in with the best argument, as tested by him, won. So I waited until it was time, and then I called him. And I asked him if he would be willing, after explaining this to him, to be part of it. And he said yes. I didn't have to convince him. And that has been one of the more gratifying aspects of this whole project for me so far, is that phone call. We're on the same page, and that I'm proud of that. He's the only person from the beginning that I really considered for this consider to be the perfect person. There's one other judge who I spoke with earlier when I did not know or wasn't sure if the judge that's going to be doing this was available. I had heard that he wasn't available. But the conversation in general that I had with this judge a couple weeks ago was, it's time now for me to put this together. I've been told by more than one person now I need a pilot episode of this, and then after this meeting I had last week, I promised them a pilot episode. And he was just in complete agreement that what we're getting right now is just not worthy of the issues themselves or the people whose lives are affected by them. It's all philosophy, it's all ideology, there's no fact to it. But you and I, we don't live with ideology, we live with facts. That's what your life is all day long. It's facts. And this is a better project with him being part of it. So in closing today, I cannot stress enough how much I want you to participate in this. I love this show. It'll be 2 years in September. 20 months or so. There have been very few bad experiences on this show, almost none. I think the people who listen to this show agree with the approach that this show takes, which is take a position, be able to defend it. Everybody here is treated with respect, including me. I've not had people call up and rant. And I think it's time to take this forward, to take this approach forward. And that's what this project does. It's time to return reason to the debate. Reasonable people listen to this show, I believe. People who are frustrated over the lack of substance out there listen to this show. You can tell by some of the comments made on this show and some of the information that comes in that there are people who during the week are paying close attention to things that may not be reported in the media but that are extremely important to our lives. You should have input on how these debates work. The whole point is that the public should be setting the terms of the debate. That's what I said on my first show. That's on my website as the premise of this show. You and I are stuck with the decisions that are made. You and I should set the terms of the debate. That applies to the You Defend It debate series. You should participate in this. I want you to. Leave me posts on the blog at the website. What issues you think would make good topics, what questions you think would make good questions, who you think would represent certain points of view well enough to perform well on the stage. And this notion that, and I've encountered this along the way with people who I've talked to about this project. They're not going to be grilled. This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for people who know their facts, who know their issues inside and out. I mean, if you're asked to participate in this debate as a debater, the theory is you're an expert. You won't be there. We're not just taking anybody. You've got to prove that you've got that you're relevant to this, that you've got a background that makes you qualified to debate on this topic. And that being the case, you know more than we do. This is your chance to get it out there. This is your chance to show up and win. All right, I'm out of time. Next week I will give you another update on the debate series. And we'll hopefully have an idea then where it's going to be and what the topic might be, and hopefully with your input. Thanks for listening. I'm Rob Kilmer, and we'll see you next week.